this week's recipe is for a dessert. We're going to make a crumble. I'm calling it a fruit crumble because I'm going to do a mixture of apples and rhubarb because I have rhubarb in my garden. But you can do it really with any range of fruit. If you had plums, de-stone them, you can use those. You can use frozen fruit, and that way it can be a very quick dessert if somebody calls around for dinner. So we're going to make it and we're going to enjoy it. The first thing we need to do is to prepare our fruit. I'm going to do that by peeling the apples. If there's any bruises in your apples, just cut them out. I find this little gadget very handy for helping me to chop my apples because it takes the core out and chops them into pieces for you at one time. You might still need to do a little bit of trimming. And then what we'll do is chop them into smaller chunks, and I'm going to just pop them into my saucepan. We're going to pre-cook our fruit just to soften it, and also allows us to add some sugar or sweetener to our fruit before it goes into the base of our crumble, and then we'll know that it's the right level of sweetness. So along with my apple, I'm adding some rhubarb. If you were using just rhubarb, it probably would need more sweetness because it can be quite bitter. And if you don't have any handy gadgets for your apples, just go around the outsides of it and cut it off yourself. And then we can chop them. So altogether here I have about 800 or 900 grams of prepared fruit. I have the heat on underneath it, and I just have a couple of tablespoons of water, not too much because it will produce its own liquid, and I'm just going to let that soften down and stew for a few minutes. So while my fruit is simmering away, I'm going to make my crumble. And that's similar to making pastry or making your scones. I'm going to take my flour and I'm going to take my cubed butter, and I'm going to rub them in together till I make what looks like coarse breadcrumbs in this instance. So as I was saying, we want to leave our crumble a little bit more coarse than if we were doing, say, pastry. And at this point I'm going to add in my sugar. I just have a mix of some caster sugar and some demerara sugar. Basically we're just going to mix that through. If you want to add some spice like cinnamon, mixed spice, nutmeg to your crumble, you can either add some into your fruit or you could put a little sprinkle through the crumble either. So our fruit has been stewing probably for about 10 or 15 minutes. There's still some larger pieces. You want to keep a bit of texture in it. And at this stage now, I want to add some sugar. We'll be doing this just to taste. Now I know this rhubarb is a little bit bitter, so I will add in sugar. Best thing to do is to taste it yourself and see if it's to your likeness. To me, I think I'd add a bit more sugar to that. Now I do have a sweet tooth, so. The handy thing about stewing it in advance is you can test the sugar. Gonna have another try. Don't forget, use a clean spoon each time you taste. That's much better. At this point as well, like I said earlier, you can add a little bit of mixed spice, a bit of cinnamon, a bit of ground clove, a bit of ginger goes well with rhubarb, according to your own taste. I'm just going to leave mine plain for today. At this stage I want to put it all together. I have a nice round bowl, a glass one will allow me to see through it. I'm actually going to turn on my oven as well, about 180 for a fan oven, 190 maybe if it's not. And I'm going to add my fruit to the bottom. thing about stewing your fruit is this means it's something you could do in advance. You could make your fruit and you can freeze it. And then it's there anytime you want a nice simple dessert. On top of that now goes our crumble. One of the things that people differ in is the amount of crumble. I like a good ratio. I would want at least half of it to be crumble. I would prefer not to have 2/3 fruit and just a small bit of crumble. So I've made a good amount here and it's just going over the top. If you have the time to chill this for a little while before it goes in the oven, that'd be good. You know, so you could make it in advance. Some people even pop it in the freezer for about 10 minutes. I think that's a decent amount of crumble on the top of that. And I also have, for a little bit of extra texture, I'm just going to sprinkle on some oats. Some people add more oats into their crumble. I'm just going to put a little bit on top like that. You can also add a little sprinkle of demerara sugar to the top of it for a bit of extra crunch. And this is going to go in the oven now, probably for about 30 minutes. Just check it maybe after about 25. So my crumble's been in for just over 30 minutes. So I'm going to take it out now because I think it's done. It's golden on the top, bubbling around the sides. I'm going to have some of that for dessert.